Welcome again to Forward Finance, the podcast where we navigate the digital age of finance. My name is Jeroen Beentjes, and I'm happy to have you here for the next episode. Today, we will be having an episode where we talk about statistical forecasting. We dive into the role of AI within the financial forecasting field. And with me today, I have two experts in this field. I have here Tim with me and Benno, who will introduce themselves shortly.
I think no customer will ever, from one day to another, say, okay, we're going to drop our entire, let's say, manual forecasting process and,
of course,
and fully automate it and just accept whatever comes out of the magic box.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of ways to get there. So what we've done at some of our customers is the initial step is to provide that statistical forecast by means of an inspiration.
All right. So, guys, welcome. Thank you very much for joining again today. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive into the meat of the episode. Starting with you, Tim, maybe.
Hi there, I'm Tim Ahmad, and what you could say at the moment, I'm a bit of a social influencer in terms of what I do. Yep. I've been in the financial system kind of implementation game for about 25, 26 years. Mm-hmm. Really enjoy talking to people out there, doing polls, connecting the dots with people, and also giving them good advice, really, in terms of what to do. And I'm very much looking forward to today's podcast.
Cool. Happy to have you here. And Benno, how about you?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Benno van Ingen. I'm a consultant at Finext. I've been there for a little over 15 years now. Prior to that, I used to work in finance, but always got really distracted with all the technology and the cool stuff there. So been implementing and advising on the implementation of tool sets for performance management for the last 15 years or so on different technologies.
Well, it sounds like we have a boatload of experience again with us today at the table. So starting off with one of our regular topics, have you been to any interesting events maybe, or some interesting topics you've followed in this particular regard?
Yes, I mean, personally, I went to a breakfast event at Pigment in London. It was really good. I don't know much about the system. It was really good to be introduced to the system. Mm-hmm. And I talked with a lot of their prospective customers and also who are using their system. So it's a really good, and I made a talk about various things, what I do and what to look out for and things like that. So it was great fun. Yeah.
So Pigment is basically an FP&A solution within the EPM market. They're rather new on the market. So I think maybe it would be a good idea to have a podcast somewhere in the future about Pigment. So let's talk about that later.
Sure.
Benno, anything interesting you've been participating in?
Not so much, Jeroen. I think it's the summer season.
Of course.
I've been on a holiday, and I think the rest of Europe has been on a holiday.
Yep.
It's been a bit quiet on that front, but lots of new stuff coming up in the next month. September is the conference and event month. I think September, October. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff on the agendas coming up. Specifically relevant, I think, for the listeners today that are interested in forecasting, is that the future of forecasting will be held soon. It's an event hosted by Finext. It's a live event in the Netherlands. So if you're in the area, you can sign up. I'll put the invitation link in the show notes so you can look at it and sign up if you're interested. Where we'll basically be looking at the various systems and the various trends on the market regarding forecasting. And you'll be able to have talks with all the experts in the field and the people that are also in the same boat as you are when it comes to forecasting. All right, so let's dive into the topic then for today. Guys, we're going to be talking about statistical forecasting, basically forecasting, but with elements of AI mixed into it. Why it's interesting to look at, why people are using it or why they are not using it. And the first question that I have for you guys is, have you ever been involved in like a statistical forecasting project or something like that? So Benno, can you kick it off with there?
Yeah, absolutely. Funny thing is, I think at least at Finext, we've developed our first statistical forecasting, let's say, app or environment like ages ago. I think like 7-8 years ago on Anaplan.
Yeah.
And But the funny thing is that never really took off. You see that the statistical forecasting in AI is a thing that's really been speeding up in the last couple of years. I think we were a bit ahead of the wave back in the days. So the platform already has had the capabilities to do lots of magical stuff with that. Yeah. But it's only until recent years that we see real use cases coming up, and that's also because I think statistical forecasting is something it's not new, right? It's been around for ages. I mean, I've went to college and high school and all in the 90s, and that's where you already learn basically all the statistical methods that you have to manipulate and work with large data sets. And so in that sense, it's not new. But it's what the new thing is how you make those things relevant for the processes that we are involved in. Because if you look at real operational processes and data, statistical forecasting and statistical analysis of large data sets, that's quite commonly used. But in the EPM space, maybe not so much. And that has something to do because you need quite a lot of data in order to do something relevant with it, with all those fancy statistical methods. Yeah. And I think it's one of the trends in the last couple of years in the EPM market space from a technology perspective is that the ability of those solutions to capture vast amounts of data, that's definitely something new. The move to the cloud using different types of technology to store the data has opened a lot of doors to do your planning and your reporting on a more detailed level, and that finally gave you the data sets to work with.
So do you think it's more like a development of the last few years that systems are more able to harvest that kind of data, that it's only now that we're seeing it, or
I think there's
something else
there's
involved?
both a technology thing, what we just discussed, that so the tools are getting more enabled to work with those large data sets and to incorporate, let's say, the logarithms to work with that data.
Yeah.
But it's also a mindset kind of thing of the people on the other side of the screen, right? The actual users, because I think we are used, and when it comes to forecasting, specifically in financial forecasting, but also in, let's say, more operational processes, we're so used to doing things manually based on knowledge that's all in our heads, and it's kind of scary to let go a little bit and let the technology do its work, and you see that as these technologies are advancing, that also the people are getting more used to it, more ready to start effectively applying it in their processes.
Yeah, I think finance is going through a transformation phase right now. So we're from a historical, more manual approach. Everything is controlled by the controller, into more a man versus machine basically approach. And we have to adapt, I think, as financials to these kind of technologies and learn to work with them, because they are the future, of course, I think. Yeah. In my forecast, at least, it's the future. Yeah. And you have to be able to either keep up or lose out, because it's coming no matter what, right?
Yep.
So I know that a lot of people are talking about it. I don't have the exact number. So Tim, can you maybe walk us through the statistics regarding statistical forecasting? Because I know that you've been doing some market research by yourself.
Sure. Fundamentally, I want to just get a feeling of what's going out there. And just to get a kind of tone of this, 85% of people who said that it's really important for them to react to market changes. I think so. Really, they do think it's really useful. Yeah, and they think most of it, 65%, really use it for demand forecasting. They'll think more of that. I guess there are some issues, and issues is really getting the right data. Historical data, financial history, data bias, things like that, and.
What do you mean with data bias exactly?
Yeah. So fundamentally, when you have data coming out and or inside the system, they could be biased in terms of a various outcome, and how do you manage that? rather than how do you manage that actual process. Yeah, and also the data, is it it's garbage in, garbage out. You know, if you go in, what is the really that comes out? Model complexities. You know, I've seen so many models out there, and in the sense is, where do you stop? Where do you start? The thing is, I would say there's not much an uptake as much as I thought it would be. Yeah, people are actually love it as a concept. I know a couple of large companies doing predictive forecasting in a very horrible scenario, maybe things like nuclear war or things like that, or we've had things like COVID.
So you actually know that customers are preparing for these kind of things?
Yeah, and they should. They should. I mean,
of course, it's risk mitigation, right?
Yeah. What happened with COVID? We never expected something like that, or the Ukraine war, things like that. So we're in a situation we never expected really to be in. Looking at the golden years, I mean, in the UK, it's everywhere. All the systems, all the economy is really down in many ways. Got interest rates high, so I think people should look at it. It's not just a thing nice to have. But I see there is a reluctance. Is it psychology of the whole thing? Is it too futuristic? Well, the impact of AI has been drastic in the last couple of months. Yeah. People are just changing everything based on tools which are accessible. I mean, out of interest, I did some predictive analysis using ChatGPT the other day. Yeah, it's very interesting what you can actually do.
Yeah, if you fiddle around with the technology.
If you fiddle it down, if you put a little bit of this, and this is the factors, what does come out, So people can actually start fiddling around, but actually having tools, that's another thing. Is there a tool that you guys use or know of that does something like this?
Well, I know that for a fact that we work together with a data science partner. So within our network, there's a company called Rockfeather, and they have developed their own predictive model, basically. So what they do is they built a Python package in which they do their statistical forecasting calculations, and then because they put it in a separate system, it's possible to latch it onto modern pieces of technology. So, for example, if you're using a EPM solution which is able to connect to various systems, think of Tagetic or OneStream or Board or systems like that, where you have to be able to import and export data, you can basically build the tables within the CPM solution and then extract what you need for the statistical forecast, calculate there in that model, and this can be an on-site thing at your customer or just a cloud solution. And then you have the benefits of having these statistical forecasting models, something that these guys are very good at, and also reduce the amount of time that you need to implement it. So basically, you only need to prepare the data sets in your various systems, and then you send it over to this calculation machine, and then it comes back. And what I think is really interesting about this type of technology is that it validates itself. So there's always a bit of a mystery regarding statistical forecasting, where people don't know what it does. But in fact, what it does, so for example, we're in August now of 2023. If I would make a forecast for the next upcoming months, what I do is I use the historical data until December 22, and then calculate various models that they have within their Python package, and then I train the data with that, and then I validate the data with the actuals that I have from January until August. So I'm not only predicting, but I'm also validating, is my prediction correct? Because we already have some months of actuals. If you then test whether these predictive models are accurate with the months of actuals that you had, you can then pick the best model that is the best representation that you've made of your January until August data, and then you can use that particular model with all the variables that you need for a statistical forecasting calculation, and use that one to predict the future from September onwards. So I think it's an interesting model. It's something where the traditional finance people have to let go of the reins in a sense, because they have specific business knowledge, of course, and they know how their business reacts. But training a model like that, then the model also knows. So then your background in finance becomes more like, the statistical model is saying this. Is that something that I think is realistic? Can I challenge the model? And then I can use those in the talks that I have with my business managers, for example.
Yeah, there's a few approaches there. I think no customer will ever from one day to another say, okay, we're going to drop our entire, let's say, manual forecasting process and fully automate it and just accept whatever comes out of the magic box.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of ways to get there. So what we've done at some of our customers is the initial step is to provide that statistical forecast by means of an inspiration. So imagine let's say the template or the screen that you use to populate the forecast in numbers or monies or whatever for the next 18 months or so.
Yeah.
You can see a line with system says, we think this might be, but feel free to use your own or to override it with your own better opinion. If you think
that is a best practice,
this number
you
is
have like a
incorrect,
suggestion and you can adjust where necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's one approach. Another one is with one of our customers in the pharmaceutical industry. They have a massive planning process with like 30,000 SKUs that have to be planned globally. Yeah. And what we found out when testing the model, similar to the approach that you did, is that we found out that with, let's say, the top 10% of their products, the big ones, the volumes, actually the people inputting their own, there were product managers making their planning, they were better than the logarithm. Because they had very specific knowledge, this customer or this channel or this product, we are expecting more sales here, we're doing promotions here and there, and da. So at least on the first couple of months, they were more accurate than the model. But the 80-90% of the products with less volume, they didn't get as much attention from the product managers. They focus on the biggies, of course.
Of course, yeah.
So the model was drastically better in forecasting for those lower percentages. And so what that customer chose to do, for now that is that for those top 10% of fast-moving products, they use the statistical model as an inspiration, so just to challenge the inputs, but leave the planning process to the end user really. And for the bigger volume, for the larger number of SKUs with less volume, they just let the machine do their work.
Oh wow!
And in their case, that was like really successful, or is actually.
So in conclusion, it's not necessarily a man versus machine.
No. It's never a man versus machine. Yeah. It's always a man with machine.
We even collaborate with. Okay, that's interesting.
Absolutely. One other topic I wanted to touch on, what you just mentioned about the approach where you take your data from your EPM system, bring it to an environment where you have all those logarithms. That can be Amazon or Microsoft or what have you. That is one approach. Yeah. But another trend that we do see is that more and more software vendors are embedding statistical capabilities in their product. Together has that, OneStream does it, Anaplan does it. A board, almost everybody, I think. But it's either way, it's always a really good idea to involve some of those data scientists into that process, because I, in all fairness, I'm not smart enough to understand all those logarithms, and I was horrible at statisticals. So I vividly imagine the use case, but my math skills are absolutely horrible. So
you need real experts for it.
You need a real. Don't call me, or call me. I'll put you through to the guy who does know. But but it's very important to evaluate and to understand what exactly what methods are being used if the software or if those are embedded in the software that you're using, and to see if they are actually the best, and also to investigate with your software vendor how those models are being kept up to date. So is there like one simple formula or method embedded and that's going to be there for a couple of years, or is that continuously going to be updated? Because the market and the whole market for logarithms and those is moving so fast that there's continuously new methods being released and made available, and it would be a shame not to use those, or at least maybe not necessarily to use those. I mean, we also were in touch with a customer, I think it was 2 months ago or something, US-based customer, who had a really old Oracle application running for statistical forecasting, and they needed to update the platform because the technology was just out of date.
Yeah.
But their key requirement was we need the exact same logarithm that was in there, that has been in there for 15 years or so, because it's really accurate, it's perfect, and we don't want anything else. That's what we want. So we want that old thing, but then on a new technology. And so it's not necessarily that newer is always better, but it's good to keep an open mind to what is out there, what can we use, what can we do to further improve, and then decide on should we go for, let's say, embedded features in an EPM platform, or take a small step outside and connect with your, let's say, your data warehouse environment and do your statistical calculations over there.
I think there's a lot to take in here. So I mean, we've been talking about this for some time now, but I think an important topic that we also need to address is that there is a kind of fear, I think, in the markets in regards to adopting these kind of technologies. Do you know anything about the black box principle from your market research, Tim?
So basically what I'm trying to say from the companies I've been talking to, it's not a fear thing. It's more to do with a knowledge thing, to understand what's actually available, what's actually they can actually do with what they have already. I mean, I would say everybody out there should be looking at their systems now, and see what element predictive forecasting they can do, or analytics. They'll be surprised what can be done already. I should say everyone should just have a look, what's available, but also look at what's available in the market to see if they can go actually further into what they want to do. Because I've seen, and whether it's in various different industries, even sports industry, football clubs, analytics is really, really working well. And they're actually being more competitive in what they do. They react better, and it's, I think, worth the effort to actually do what they should be doing now. So I believe a demo of this system that you have, I'm quite interested because I haven't seen anything, would be great to have a look and see what it's about. It's not about that product particularly that I'm interested. I'm interested in the whole process.
Like, what are the possibilities? What are the times that you need? Like, what are the... Sure.
And also I'm quite intrigued the fact that they can look at any system out there. And especially if you've got the right data and all that stuff. So in that sense, I'm sure it could be something useful to have a looking at. I mean, out of interest from your customer base, what percentage have taken up predictive analytics and statistical forecasting?
Interesting question. I don't actually know. Have you any idea?
Is it low?
Yeah, well,
lowish,
I don't have any real statistically accurate information on that. But
is it a big take
It's low. No,
it's low. So that's what I'm saying.
It's low, but it's definitely increasing. So I think out of our customers on the EPM space, maybe 5 to 10% are currently using it. But there's a growing interest for proof of concepts and for demo kind of things to see, to explore. And because what you see is that I think AI in the broader sense, there's a lot more than statistical or predictive forecasting, of course. But it is taking off faster on, let's say, more the transactional and operational parts of the companies. It's being adopted there faster, and it's slowly trickling down into the EPM use cases. But I think the next years that percentage will definitely go up. And because we're now focusing on forecasting, and that's the most, maybe one of the most obvious use cases. But there's a lot more to it than that. You use roughly the same methodologies, for instance, in anomaly detection. You see that on a transactional level for fraud detection, those kinds of things. But you can also apply the same techniques in the real analytics part of your processes. Or think of and that's something that's really only taking baby steps right now. But what about narratives and disclosures? People writing comments into their annual reports or their management slide decks and whatever on what has happened this month. And there's going to be a big development on that end. Why would you write stuff as a person while you can do, let's say, 90% of the groundwork by the machine? that can point out to you, hey, you should look at this and this and this topic, or this SKU and this market, because there's something weird going on there. Or maybe even better, this product in this market has gone up, and that's probably because the weather was awesome in that geography in that year. So that is also an area that's not forward-looking, but that's more on the consolidation and reporting side of things, where it will bring great value, I think, in the future.
Yeah, I think, of course, correlations do not mean causations, but it's interesting to see, looking backwards at your data, like what has been causing my jumps or my going up or down in my financial performance. So it's interesting to couple that with actually non-financial data.
Yeah.
So we all know the ice cream vendor who sells better and when the weather is warm. But there are, of course, many non-financial data points that you can be using. I know actually from one of my customers has been using demographical data for the various areas that they're working, because they're selling glasses, and the people that are using glasses are more the elderly people. So they're using that in order to map the areas that they don't have already invested in. So they see, okay, the demographics in this particular area are going up. We need to be investing in this particular area because the market share will be growing there in the next few years. So that's interesting to use in your forecasting as well. And I think that's something that a lot of financials are overlooking, since it's non-financial data. It's not your data, but it could be very valuable for steering your business. What do you guys think of that?
Well, they definitely should open up some more shops in the town where I live, but I'll give them a call. But
yeah, that's a good idea.
I think the crux of the argument is we've seen the figures now from the polls, and the uptake will increase now because of the embracing of AI, understanding what's going on, and also the crisis we felt had in the last 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So I would say it's something that's going to shoot up, and all the vendors, all the consultancies, they should be looking at it properly and looking at it intuitive ways, automation ways, rather than the worst thing is having another system and you're going to increases the month end. We need to actually use it to shorten the month end.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the lead time of the process should be shortened, and not because people are already busy enough. So we have to do something about that. But the accuracy also has to go up.
Exactly.
The funny thing, by the way, about big disruptive events is that it's indeed a great accelerator for companies taking up these type of technologies. Let's say a COVID or the crisis that we had in the couple last years. They definitely were the financial crisis, like more than a decade ago. They made an increase in the need of people. That people started to realize that they need more predictability, more to be on the forefront of the things. But at the same time, the same events have caused major issues in that same predictive technologies, because all the statistics in COVID years had kind of depending, maybe in all industries, completely screwed up.
If you're using that to train your data, then
exactly,
you actually need another crisis
huge
in order to have
spikes or dips
in
the data, and you need to find a way to. But that's again where the scientists, the data scientists, come in to help you overcome those issues.
I think in conclusion, interesting years ahead. A lot of technological developments that we should be following on foot, maybe our customers as well. And we should be talking about this more often, I think, because I think it's a very interesting topic. We've already gone a bit over time right now, so I need to end it right now because of the short attention span, of course, of the people at the table. But I think it's a very interesting topic, and I would love to deep dive again on this particular part. So thank you a lot, Tim. Thank you a lot, Benno, for your attendance today at the table, and thank you very much for listening in again. If you're interested in a career in finance, or if you're interested in topics for the podcast future episodes, do send us an email at podcast@finext.nl. The email address will also be in the show notes. And then I bid you a great day, and then we will talk again in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.